Members of the council, good morning. I am pleased to, if there's no objection, to call this meeting to order between the mayor and council on this September 27th. Let me welcome all of you back. I trust you had a restful and productive recess, and I am looking forward to getting back to work with you. I also want to welcome and certainly my staff and team in welcoming the council's newest member, Robert White. I would also like to commend you, Chairman, for the appointment of members of the council to subcommittees, and congratulate Councilmember Todd and Nadeau and Silverman and Allen on their new roles on the council. And we would, of course, like to send our appreciation to Councilmember Vincent Orange for his many years of service. Mr. Chairman, I would also like to acknowledge your staff's cooperation in working on what I thought was a excellent event for the residents of the District of Columbia in celebrating the opening of the African American Museum of History and Culture that opened on this past weekend on the Mall. I was proud to host an event for DC residents where over 1,100 people came to the Wilson Building on Friday night in partnership with the African American Mayors Association, the U.S. Conference of Mayors, the Thurgood Marshall Fund, the National League of Cities, and Events DC. We were also able to turn the Wilson Building into our own DC History Museum, and we still have some of those displays in on the first and third floors of our building. DC Libraries, the DC Archives, and the Commission on Arts and Humanities were very instrumental with working with us to put those exhibits together, and I would also like to extend my thanks to them. If you haven't had a chance to see the history booklet, little pamphlet that they put together that commemorates the event, I hope that you will take an opportunity. I think we probably have some in our office, and we would be happy to share those with you. So thank you for the cooperation in making sure we could all use the building and invite 1,100 residents into the building. So I also want to acknowledge and introduce, to make sure you all know, people who are in new roles and people that we have welcomed to the government. So let me acknowledge Rob Hawkins, who is serving as the Deputy Chief of Staff and Director of Communications for our office. You know Rob for many years of working in my council office with me. And Thomas Bowen, who is the Executive Director of the Mayor's Office of Religious Affairs. Reverend Bowen, please wave so everybody can see you. Malik Williams has been promoted to the Director of the Mayor's Office of Clean City. There's Malik. And also Tommy Jones, promoted to the Mayor's Director of the Office of Community Relations and Services, also known as the MOKers, Tommy Jones. Brian Ferguson, I'm appointing as the Director of the Mayor's Office of Returning Citizens, and Brian Ferguson has moved over to this position from the Office of Human Rights. And Eli Ross, we're welcoming to the government, and I'm appointing him the Director of the Mayor's Office of Veterans Affairs. I'm also welcoming back to the government Ed Fisher, who I am appointing as hiring as the Executive Director of the St. Elizabeth's East Campus Development. Welcome, Ed. And Ed, as you know, is a longtime staffer of Councilmember Alexander. And also, I am pleased to congratulate Andrew Reese, who I am appointing as the Department of Disability Services Director, where Andrew had been in a deputy role position at DDS. So please join me in congratulating. I also want to thank and acknowledge three directors who are serving in an interim capacity. Director Greer Gillis at DGS, Chief Peter Newsham at MPD, and John Davis, who will begin serving as the interim chancellor on Friday. So I also want to thank and congratulate them. So today we will be providing an update on the Office of Public and Private Partnerships. I think that we have previously introduced to you the director of the P3 office, Seth Miller, and the deputy director, Judah Gluckman. Today, the director will provide an update on the office and discuss how regulations, which are currently before the council for approval, will proceed. The committee of the whole has scheduled a public hearing on the regulations for this Thursday, and we look forward to the council's approval of these regulations. So once the regulations are approved, we will be eager to begin the process of considering public-private partnerships. I have been asked by a number of you, when is this going to happen? The regulations are done. They're before the council, and we will talk more about how we can be in front of the council for any sharing of information about how things work, and also how we will plan to educate the public on P3s. So let me now turn to Seth.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. Mr. Chairman, members of the council, thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to update you on the activities of the Office of Public-Private Partnerships. We'll go through some basics of what P3s are and, more importantly, what they're not. Share with you the goals for our office, some things we've been looking at, our current activities going on, so you know what we've been up to.
Seth, let me get you a little bit closer to the microphone, please.
Thank you. And talk about some projects we've been looking at, including a demonstration that you may see here in the corner of the room. So let's get started. So most importantly, whenever I talk about what public-private partnerships are, I like to start with what they're not. Public-private partnerships are not free money. It's not the private sector coming in and feeling very generous and saying, here you go, District of Columbia, here's some free money, please do this great project. They are looking for a revenue stream. We need to be partners in this. Conversely, they're not privatization or outsourcing. We are not in the business of selling anything. We're not in the business of taking government jobs and converting them over to private sector jobs. This is a partnership to find better ways. And public-private partnerships are not philanthropic activities. This is, as much as we like, we're not going to have some generous billionaire or foundation come in and fund a project. That's nice to start, but we really need to find long-term revenue streams that can support projects over the long term, because we're looking at full life cycle costing of these projects. So what is a public-private partnership? It is a long-term performance-based agreement between the private sector and the public sector. What we're looking for is make sure that we can develop projects that will stand the test of time, that will be fully maintained over the whole life of that project. There's a long history throughout all governments at all levels where we'll build a new building, it looks great, and then unfortunately the maintenance budget never seems to make it through. And by year 20 of a 50-year facility, the building's in pretty bad shape. We want to find better ways to work with the private sector where that building is going to be up and running and something we can all be proud of for the full 50 years if it's a 50-year life cycle. How we do that is identifying the risks within a project and appropriately allocating those risks to the party best able to mitigate that risk. If it's something the private sector can handle better and for lower cost to the end user, the public, the private sector should handle it. If it's some risk that the public sector can handle better at a lower cost and more effectively, that risk should remain with the public sector. It's identifying those risks, because every risk in a project has a cost, and we have to recognize that and move forward with that understanding. It's how we hold the private sector accountable is to make sure that when they take on a risk, that they fully execute everything they need to do under the agreement to mitigate that risk. And us as the public sector hold our private partners accountable for that. We need to set up mechanisms where the private sector is not only incentivized to do everything they said they would do within the contract, but obligated to do so through a series of, well, penalties if it's an availability payment, if they don't get paid the full amount, all the way to losing what kind of investment they've put in. So it's really working together and knowing what we need to do. Some benefits of public-private partnerships. One, I hinted this a little bit, incentivizing innovation. The private sector is very good at finding new, more efficient ways of doing some of the things that we're doing right now. Frankly, they do this because that can increase their profit. We need to be able to harness that incentive, that profit motive that the private sector has, and use it for the advantage of the public. Engage that motivation, that innovation to find better ways, more cost-effective ways of doing things, and use it to help us. Incorporating the full cost of operation of the project. We need to start looking at projects for their full life cycle cost. It's not just building a new school or building a new office building and it costs $20 million to build. How much is it going to cost the District of Columbia to own and operate that facility over its full life cycle? We start looking at the whole cost of operation and working with the private partners to make sure we do that. The CFO can tell you even more about that if you ask him. Managing the risk. Again, I covered a lot about how we mitigate risk. We need to start identifying risk, accepting those risks, and managing and planning for them over the whole life cycle of the project. Greater accountability, as I alluded to earlier, how do we have the private sector take on risk and then hold them accountable? And then how do we hold ourselves as the district government accountable as well for the full funding of the maintenance of these projects? And then we'll get a little bit of debt capacity. It's something we have been working with the chief financial officer on. I won't tell you any more about the debt cap. You all know that too well. How can we find innovative ways to do what we need to do when it comes to infrastructure and structuring these projects under financial models that have limited or no impact on our debt cap, but get us where we need to be as terms of infrastructure? Because frankly, we're not going to be able to grow the economy of the district and deliver top-notch services to the residents if we don't have the proper infrastructure to do it. Here's a typical P3 structure. You all have this. Jude and I would be happy to come to speak to you at length about this structure and different categories of the structure. I won't torture you with that now, but happy to do it later at any time. So what has the Office of Public-Private Partnership been doing since our inception? We have been working very hard, meeting with deputy mayors, clusters, and agencies that have capital needs, those government offices that are going to be looking at facilities, getting their ideas, helping explain what a P3 is and how we can help. We were very fortunate through the efforts of the office to win awards from the ENO Foundation, which is a center that focuses mainly on transportation, but has really expanded to all infrastructure classes, and from the Living Cities, which is a City Accelerator program. And we, under the City Accelerator program, we're working in 3 other jurisdictions, San Francisco, Pittsburgh, and St. Paul, to look at our infrastructure needs and how, as 4 cities, we can work together going forward to address this. We've been developing our pipeline of projects, identifying those projects that meet the threshold of a public-private partnership, which we've identified for the District of Columbia around about the $50 million mark, just to make them economically viable. We've been exploring all the capital funding and financing options we have, looking at the complexities of these projects and how we can do better, and meeting with a lot of private sector parties, including investors who are interested. And a lot of that has gone into marketing the district. We've had over 300 meetings with potential private sector partners and investors. The best meetings are always the potential investors, because it's always nice to hear that the District of Columbia is one of the most attractive places to invest. If you are a pension fund or other institutional investor and you are looking for a safe place to put your money, investing in a public-private partnership for a large infrastructure project in the District of Columbia is somewhere you want to be. Not just because we are seen as a good investment for the long term, but everyone wants to have on all their documentations that they have a project in the District of Columbia. Somehow they go London, Toronto, and the District of Columbia. Those are the 3 places people want to be. We want to capitalize on that interest. We've also been representing the district at dozens of P3 conferences and industry meetings, out there trying to sell the idea that District of Columbia is the place you want to be and that we're open for business. This is the P3 project. Again, we'll be very happy to come speak to you further about this, but we wanted to highlight under either the solicited or unsolicited model that is available to us through the P3 Act. There are many opportunities for the council and the administration to work together. I guarantee you'll be in all your offices telling you more than you ever wanted to know about a building or a street lighting project, but there's a lot of opportunity where we have to work together to make sure that the District of Columbia is representing a unified front in this. That's really one public sector entity engaging one private sector entity. So here are the 3 projects that we've been working on. You'll learn a little bit more this morning about the streetlight modernization project, which is a smart city goal of the district. The Daly building, which is the MPD headquarters. As many of you know, that building is in a state of repair that can only be described as not so great. We really need to find a private partner that can help us work on that, and the correction center. Those are the 3 projects that we have been putting a lot of effort into. Happy to tell you a lot more about it when we have a little bit more time. At this point, I'd like to pass it over to Anil from Octo, who will tell you more about PA 2040.
Good morning, Madam Mayor, members of the council. My name is Anil Sharma. I am the Chief Network Officer with Office of Chief Technology Officer. So here I'm going to talk about a project which is called PA 2040. It's on Pennsylvania Avenue. It's a 3x3 block area between 17th and 19th Street Northwest and G and I Street Northwest. So here the intent was to build a smart and connected corridor. The ultimate goal was to build a living lab where you have the ability for residents to actually use their capabilities of gigabit Wi-Fi along with demonstrating the capabilities of smart lighting. I have an application that I actually display from my laptop, but while I'm doing that, I wanted to give a little bit clarity on what is a smart and connected city. So when you wake up in the morning, you have the capability of your coffee pot knowing what time you wake up, so coffee starts to be made. You're getting ready to go to work, with the means of transportation, whether it's metro or you're commuting, you know what the time for the metro is, you know what the traffic pattern actually looks like. And at the same time, when you're driving in, you'll have the capability of identifying through smart parking applications the ability to identify a location where you can actually park. I'm actually going to log in into an application that we have associated with smart lighting. So on the corner here, you'll actually see an LED light which has been installed along with gigabit Wi-Fi, and we have video nodes as well. So on PA 2040 Pennsylvania Avenue, what we've done is we've upgraded 71 lights on this corridor, and here we have the capability of remotely managing these lights. So at this point, it's turned off. You can turn off the light, you can control the intensity, you can control the time as to when it turns on, depending upon the weather pattern. You have a proximity sensor, so at night, if you're actually walking down the street, sorry, my apologies. So there's a proximity sensor which is actually installed on the top. So at night, if you're walking up, it has the capability of going all the way up to 100 meters. So based on the distance, it actually turns on automatically. So in a smart city, you're walking down street. As people walk, lights turn on. So here, there were multiple things that we were trying to target. One is the lights were not LED in nature, so we wanted to upgrade those. And the other pain point that DDOT had was, so today the way they procure power, it's actually done through wholesale. So you don't have the capability of identifying what is the actual power consumption associated with this light. So here on Pennsylvania Avenue through the, let me just add the node. So as you can see here, during the different times of the day, it identifies what is the power consumption along with the temperature. So there are multiple sensors that are actually installed. You can identify the internal, external temperature. You can identify what is the actual power consumption. So then they can look at it from the perspective of, is metered a better or viable solution for them as opposed to getting power in wholesale? Here you can demonstrate the capabilities in terms of changing the distance of the proximity sensors, whether you want to make it 100 meters, how you would like to dim the light. And here you can actually control the lights. So today it's off. So schedule is at about approximately 15%. For 1 split second, I'm going to increase the intensity. So this is at full range. I'll turn it off.
I think that we wanted to demonstrate a few things. I think everybody knows that we have 70,000 streetlights across the District of Columbia. And I think most members of the council know we've been trying to procure the replacement of those lights for a number of years. And now I have challenged the P3 team to come up with ideas, and also our Chief Technology Officer, that would attract the private sector to be involved in this light replacement. Now, while 70,000 seems a lot, the Chief Technology Officer is right now hosting a meeting of CTOs from around the country where they're talking about cities with 400,000 and 500,000 and 600,000 streetlights. So we are really well positioned to really think about what we want our streetlights to be able to accomplish, get a partner, and get them installed in relatively short order. And we think that the P3 model is the way to go. I just want to call your attention to page 12, where you not only see the pilot area that Anil was talking about. I think, Anil, you told me you have 70 of the lights here up being tested and watched and observed to see if they're working for us, and that's the map. But you also see the different capabilities of those that we're testing. Can they be public Wi-Fi, smart lighting? Can they enhance our CCTV network? Or could they be part of our smart parking?
Absolutely correct.
Yes, all of those things.
Right. So the intent was, how do you leverage one asset for multiple purposes? So on the street light itself, while you have LED light that you're upgrading, you're also installing a video node which can help and assist towards smart parking applications. So today in Chinatown, we're actually working with DDOT for smart parking. Actually, I can show you a video which demonstrates that.
I know that we will have time for a video, but we will call, all the council members' attention to it. But we just wanted to go through with some, with some detail, the types of things that are, we're looking at for P3. And I would ask that if there are any questions or any particular things that you want the office to focus on, I would hope that you would share that with Seth. Also, we know, and I'm glad the CFO is here because he is really working on an asset, as I think he's probably briefed everybody on. What would you call that, Jeff?
Capital replacement system.
Capital replacement system. So really looking overall at the city, at our facilities and assets, seeing what state they're in, and estimating when we will have to make those investments. And given our environment with a debt cap, how are we going to make those investments? So P3 is one tool, and I'm sure that we will be discussing together additional tools. Okay, so I want to thank you, gentlemen, for that. Yes. Sure.
For clarification, when we do these P3s, how do we establish the policy directives behind it in an appropriate way? So, just as an example for here, like if we put cameras in all these streetlights, what does that mean? Little things like how long do we keep them? Do we delete them after a day, after a month, after a year? How do we drive the policy conversation behind a P3 agreement like this?
Sure. Well, I don't think that the P3 would upend any existing policy, and certainly if it did, that would be a discussion. But if for example, we went with cameras, it wouldn't be in line with our existing CCTV policies. But what was important to me when we drafted this legislation some years ago was that we sent some certainty to the market. And I think that where is the little graph that shows on page 9, you see that we're going to develop the RFP, and we're going to involve the council at that phase, which we don't do in other procurements, but the council will weigh in on the RFP. And then that should, by the time we get to the end, there really shouldn't be any other questions. That's because great. We all would have weighed in on the solicitation.
That's great. I appreciate that. It's just as long as that the cost sharing, in this kind of deal doesn't get wrapped up in, us then having to come before us and say, in order for this to be worth it to us, we have to make sure that we agree to this many of such and such. And I think it's important that we just be in front of that as best we can so that it doesn't get to that point where there's a draft agreement already made that agrees to increasing something that is a policy.
You got it.
If I could just follow up on that. When the council
worked on the legislation a couple of years ago, we flipped the procurement process so that the council's involved early on, which then creates more certainty for the private sector when they're coming in, because we've already approved what the policy will be with regard to that particular proposal.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any, I don't think we have anything else on P3, so I wanted to, the council requested a WMATA update from Jack and Jeff.
Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor, and good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Jack.
I came to brief everyone a little bit on where we are on Metro. Before I do that, I'm going to harken back to
Microphone.
this weekend. Can you hear me?
Folks watching
Louder? Harken back to this weekend with the opening of the National African American Museum of Culture. The mayor was the lead-off speaker at the event, and she did a fabulous job. So,
Thank
Mayor,
you, Jack.
congratulations
Thank you.
on doing that.
Thank
Give her
you.
a big round of applause. There's a significance to it, because having our mayor be the lead-off speaker harkened me back to a day when it wasn't such. The district is always left out because they don't look at us as something. And I remember Katharine Graham's funeral at the National Cathedral, where the mayor of New York City, Rudy Giuliani, was seated in the front row, and our mayor, Mayor Williams, didn't have a seat at all. And so we've come a long way. So, Mayor, congratulations
Thank you,
on
Jack.
a
Thank you.
fabulous speech and really representing the district very well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Metro, always Metro. So I have a couple of issues I want to discuss with you quickly, and then Jeff, the CFO, is going to give you a presentation. And this is never good news, so be ready. The big issue facing Metro as we go forward, and I want to hold up this chart. I believe the mayor and her people prepared this, an excellent chart about the late hours. So I want to inform everybody where we are and get all of your support, if you agree, to keeping Metro open late. We start with a fundamental difference of opinion between the district on one hand and Maryland and Virginia on another hand. Maryland and Virginia continue to view Metro as a commuter rail system, a system that brings people into the city and then takes them home. I'm exaggerating, but given their druthers that run the thing from 5 in the morning till 10 at night, Monday to Friday, that would work for them. As the district has become a vibrant place, we need a subway system in the city that operates all the time, particularly in the late night hours, because not only do we want to get people to our restaurants, hotels, bars, etc., but more importantly, we want to make sure the employees who work there have a way of getting home, because those are the individuals who cannot afford to pay Uber and Lyft and all those other things. So late night hours is critical. The general manager, Paul Wiedefeld, has put a proposal on the table. Now, just as a little background, the law of the land is we stay open until 3 in the morning on Friday nights and Saturday nights. Because there's an emergency with SafeTrack, while SafeTrack is going on until next April, we've given the general manager the authority to close at midnight all the time. Come April, we go back to 3 in the morning. But the general manager has made a proposal, which is now going to public hearing, that we close at midnight. His proposal is on this chart, I believe, the SafeTrack proposal. There are other proposals out there, A, B, C, and D. Now, the general manager put out A, B, and C. I insisted on D, which again keeps the system open until 3 in the morning. What the general manager has said is having 19 hours a week to work on the track is not enough. That's what we were doing in the past. He needs 8 additional hours. So he needs to get them from somewhere, which is why he wants to close the system at night. If we keep it open at night, as I propose, we've got to find the hours somewhere else. I just randomly chose Sunday morning, Saturday morning, and to great objections, of course, because nobody wants to close at any time. So a hybrid of this is a possibility, some other proposal. I'm just informing you all of it because it is coming up fast, and the decision will be made by the end of the year. Number 2, special events. This isn't on here. Metro stays open late for special events after midnight during the week if the person or the entity having a special event pays for it. The proposal is not to do that anymore. So in the Bruce Springsteen concert or the Billy Joel concert or the Caps game for the Stanley Cup, or coming up very quickly when the Nats get to the World Series, will Metro stay open past midnight, which is really 11:20 when you got to get on the last train out of Dodge. So I raised it at the last board meeting about an exception during Safe Track to keep the Nationals, to keep it open if the Nationals, when the Nationals get to the World Series. And the board was not supportive. I got to tell you, the board was not supportive. So again, as we progress in the playoffs, we may need to weigh in and weigh in heavily if we want to keep Metro open past midnight during the World Series. Keep in mind, the World Series is a late game. Starts at 8 o'clock, commercials are long. So the prospect of it going past 11:20 is great. And can you imagine the World Series, it's the 8th inning of the game is tied, okay? It's the 7th game of the World Series, and 15,000 people in the stadium have to get up and leave. I mean, so it's kind of a humorous, gross exaggeration, but nonetheless, something we have to consider as we go forward. Finally, the finances. The finances continue to be a disaster at Metro. We are on a different fiscal year at Metro than the city. Fiscal year is July 1st to June 30th. So we are already in fiscal year 17, and we are preparing the fiscal year 18 budget. The fiscal year 17 budget was balanced on what I call contrivances. We used to do this in the district back before the control board era. Funny money would do things that you shouldn't do otherwise. For instance, in the past, Metro always, for reasons I can't explain, used capital dollars to balance the operating budget. They used $30, $40 million of that. It was legal, but really not a good idea. This past year, they used $100 million of capital dollars to balance the operating budget. I have said to them, we're not ever doing that again. To great objection from some of the other members of the board. Secondly, Safe Track is costing us an additional $100 million a year, which we don't have. We are in union negotiations, and in all likelihood, we'll see an increase of our labor and pension costs of about $20 to $30 million. And just general rates of inflation will increase the budget. So we are looking at a $275 million shortfall for Metro in our 2018 budget that the general manager will be preparing in November. Now, when I explain this to the Congress, to the region, to everybody, I get this kind of the same looks I'm getting around here. Everybody's kind of bored. What's he talking about? Who cares? The reason is that $275 million has to come from somewhere. If it doesn't come from the federal government, although I'm trying hard to get it, it's going to come from us. And our share is going to be close to $100 million. Or we don't have to do it at all. And you'll have the system that we have out there today. A system that is somewhat safe, totally unreliable, losing riders, and breaking down almost on a daily basis. Jeff is going to talk about the capital budget. We have an $18 billion, as you've heard me say many times before, but it never seems to sink in with anybody, $18 billion shortfall over the next 10 years. And these are real numbers. They're not numbers I've made up. Just to give you an example, just to replace the rail cars, remember we're still running the 1000 series rail cars that we started running in 1976. Just to replace them alone, $2 million a car, 12 cars a month, 144 cars a year, multiplied by 10 comes out to $2.8 billion just for the cars. If we put all 8-car trains out on the tracks, which everybody wants to do, nothing will happen. Turn on the switch, nobody runs. Because the power system for Metro will not work with all 8-car trains. It has to be upgraded to the tune of $1.5 billion. If you ride the Red Line, you know it leaks. From Cleveland Park to Medical Center is leaks because the construction was faulty. Back in the 60s, it cannot be fixed unless we encapsulate the entire tunnel. Otherwise, you're going to have fires from now till ever. $2 billion. And I can go on and on and on. Now, as the Maryland people say, why do we have to do any of this stuff? We don't. Then you got the system you got out there today. A system that is not working. The congestion in the city because of Beach Drive and Metro now is almost intolerable. So we need to fix this, and it's going to cost us. So I want to go to Jeff. Jeff has a good presentation. It has been made to all the city and county administrators, all of the CFOs, region-wide and in the states, to the Metro board on Thursday, and I wanted to make sure all of us saw it. Now, I think the chairman and mayor have already seen it, and maybe the city administrator, so you have to bear with us. But it is an excellent presentation about what we face. The reason, again, I'm going to sum up now, is it's extremely expensive and extremely important. And the district, barring federal intervention, is going to be on the hook for a whole lot of money. We don't have to do it. Maryland doesn't want to do it. Virginia is this way on it. If we don't do it, you got the system we got out there today. Otherwise, we're going to have to really put a lot of work and a lot of money into fixing this. So Jeff, why don't you take over and make the presentation. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilmember Evans, Mayor, members of council. I'm going to run you through quickly a presentation, as Councilmember Evans said, of a study we've been working on as a result of what the mayor mentioned. We're looking at the capital asset replacements for the entire district. And so we're at the end of October, we'll be releasing the study that we're working on to finish that shows all the assets we have. What does it take to maintain them? Where do we have problems financing them, where we need to look at things like P3s? It's going to really put that out there where you can see the P3 opportunities, the replacement costs we need to be addressing. And as you do that, the one thing you can't leave out is Metro. So we've done a separate analysis and study of the Metro system in terms of what we call a rough order of magnitude estimate is of the long-term cost of Metro, which I'll walk you through, that we have shared with the members of the other jurisdictions to get their feedback on, and to help us all understand the magnitude of the challenges we have and what some solutions may be. So I'll walk you through this quickly. This is just a disclaimer at the beginning that this is our analysis as we present it to the other members, and that we're looking for their feedback on that particular situation. So how do we, as the DC CFO's office, who aren't Metro staff, come up with an analysis of Metro? And well, we have gotten all the public data that they have. So we are working to develop a reasonable estimate to determine their realistic capital needs, not necessarily what is asked for, but what can actually be executed. What is the operation and maintenance gap? Because there's an operating gap, as Councilmember Evans mentioned, on SafeTrack, and there's a capital gap on $18 billion. And is $18 billion the right number? What if you borrow versus pay as you go? What's the impact of that? We took a look at that. And then what are the additional contributions you need from somewhere, from us as jurisdictions, from a dedicated funding source, from Congress, from the federal government, from wherever we may need to get it. So how do we do that? Well, we developed key forecasting assumptions on what's inflation and growth going forward. We did a 10-year analysis. We used their 17 budget as a baseline because the 18 budget's not yet approved. We added the estimated SafeTrack cost to the 17 budget. We looked at their 6-year approved capital improvement program, the approved program, and added that in. And then we took a look at the other set of data they have, which is called Metro 2025, which is their other long-range capital plan, and added that in, which does things like 8-car trains and fixing tunnels and things like that that aren't necessarily in their 6-year capital program. In that analysis, we worked to conclude what's the gap between revenues and costs, or sources and uses. How much can they borrow? We took an analysis of that, and how could they do that in an affordable way, in a responsible way, and then we determined what the average annual funding need is. We call this a rough order of magnitude analysis because they are in the middle of doing a capital needs inventory at WMATA to determine their future capital programs, but that probably won't be done until next year, and we're trying to get a handle on the order of magnitude for us right now. So let's take a look at the capital first. If you look on page 6 of your handout, on the left-hand side are the assumptions of the capital program. We're assuming that it's a 6-year program, and we're all going to keep up with inflation. So we're assuming all jurisdictions will agree to add 3% a year to keep it where inflation doesn't eat your capital program alive, and you keep up with at least the growth of cost. We assumed that PREA, which is the federal government funding, $150 million comes from the federal government every year, and Maryland puts in 50, we put in 50, and Virginia puts in 50 to match it. That agreement ends in 2020. We assume that goes through 2026, so it gets extended. That's an assumption we're making. If that doesn't happen, the gap is larger than we're going to show you in a minute. We assume that, again, the 6-year CIP does have a lot of money for the 7000 series rail cars. If you've ever ridden Metro, the shiny new ones, or the 7000 series car, which is much nicer than riding in the older 2000 series. You can look at the serial number on the car, you know how old the car is. If it's 2000, it's an older car, 7000, a newer car. And then we added the Metro 2025 program, which is $5.3 billion. So that's a big add you're adding on. And that gives you the power supply, 8-car trains, core station improvements, blue line connections, pocket track, so you're not single tracking all the time, fleet expansions, and fixing their maintenance facilities. Now look to the right. This is where you get to the hit here. The revenue that's coming in from the federal government is making the assumptions on the left from state and local jurisdictions, and this is capital only, and some small adjustments Metro asked us to make, is $8.1 billion coming in. The cost of all you want to do is 17.9, call it $18 billion. There's nearly a $10 billion, this is hard for the public or average person to grasp, $10 billion shortfall in revenues versus expenses that somebody has to fund that's not currently funded by any of the jurisdictions. So that's the capital gap if you do a $12 billion program. Let's look at the operation and maintenance gap. On the left-hand side, we're assuming that we're going to add SafeTrack on, and it's going to be a permanent condition where you keep it maintained at the proper level. And if you talk to the general manager, he would say you need to add $100 million to the 17 budget to get there. And Councilmember Evans mentioned that just a minute ago. We assumed our contributions, Maryland's, Virginia's, and all the jurisdictions are going to grow at 3% a year. So that assumes we won't just give what we gave this year, we'll grow it at 3% a year. It's an assumption so that we stay up with inflation. We assume personnel, materials, and supplies are going to grow at 3% a year. So revenue coming in grows at the same level that the costs do. Things like fuel, we're assuming at 2% a year, and we're assuming that the significant drop in revenue that has occurred will continue until the system gets reliable again, and then it will start growing in 2022, and then it will grow at 3% a year. And then we assume things like their retiree health care benefits are going to get funded as they need to, or there'll be longer term problems. So think about the gap here. You have $100 million you're adding that's not funded. You have expenses growing and revenue staying flat. That causes a gap. And you're funding all your retiree health care benefits and things like that. Look to the right-hand side. You can see total revenues, 18.9, call it $19 billion in total revenues. Total expenses, $21 billion. There's a $2.1 billion operating gap in addition to a capital gap. And to give you a feel, these are 10-year numbers. So to give a feel for the order of magnitude, passenger revenues are $8 billion of the $18 billion. That's a very top number on the right-hand side. And you look right above the total state and local subsidies, you'll see a $9.69 billion. That's our contributions. So you can see local contributions are slightly larger than passenger revenues, and you can get a feel for the mix of where the revenues come from. And you can see that personnel are about $15 billion or $1.5 billion a year is a personnel cost on the expense side, and you can see where the other costs come from. You look second from the bottom, you'll see $1 billion on SafeTrack, $1.15 billion. That's $100 million a year coming in on SafeTrack as it gets inflated. So there's a gap in operating and capital. So what are the reasons for the gap? Again, as I mentioned, you're adding 7,000 series cars that aren't currently funded, $610 million. You're replacing the outdated capital assets to ensure good rate of repair, $3.2 billion. Inflation, $728 million. And Metro 2025, $5.3 billion. That's your $10 billion gap. Operation maintenance, as I mentioned a minute ago, adding $100 million for SafeTrack, inflation, retiree health care benefits, and the fact that revenues are staying flat or declining while costs are going up, there's your gap that causes that to happen. Here's where you can see it together. And you have to look at capital, and this is the same thing that we'll be doing with this capital asset replacement system. You'll be looking at the trade-offs of operating and capital. You'll be looking at where public-private partnerships fit. You have to look at them together. So the gap is, very simply put, the $9.8 billion CIP funding gap plus the operation and maintenance gap. There's a $11.9 billion funding gap over the next decade that is not funded by any of the jurisdictions. That averages $1.1 billion a year. And you want to kind of get the part that makes everyone gasp when you talk to the other jurisdictions. Look at the table below and look at the far right-hand side on the 10-year total. That would mean that District of Columbia's share of that would be about $4.4 billion. That is more than we have in schools and DDOT in our current capital budget. So that is a challenge if we have to do that. Maryland is similar size, $4.1 billion. In Virginia, the total $3.3 billion. And you can see by jurisdiction, Loudoun County's not in here yet because we don't have the breakout, but they would be another one you would be adding on here at some time in the future as they become a member. So those are gaps that are difficult for not only us to fund, but Maryland and Virginia. So rather than panic and say, what do we do, other than raising some funds somewhere or cutting back our other capital programs, we took a little deeper look and said, do we believe this can be achieved? Do we believe this is the right number? Again, we're waiting on the capital needs inventory from WMATA, but we have a lot of experience in looking at these on my staff and myself, and we've talked to the WMATA members and Metro about this. So let's take a look at how they've executed programs historically. If you look at the last 6 years, their approved budget is around $1 billion, far right-hand column, 1.047 billion dollars. Their actual use of those monies is around $800 million. So we've been giving them a little over $1 billion. They've been spending around $800 million, which is why they have money to move from capital to operating every year, because they're not spending all their capital dollars. So the question is, how are you going to execute $1.8 billion a year, 18 divided by 10, when you've only been able to execute $800 million historically? So that's a question that we as members should ask. So you go to the next page and you say, okay, we look at this is a summary. If you look at $800 million annually, you look at 18 billion, that would have to more than double. 800 to 1.8 billion is more than double. We took a look at their CIP in detail, their capital improvement program in detail, and said, okay, if you got expansion things going on, you're trying to make the system reliable, trying to make it safe, let's move those out past the 10-year period. Let's look at those things they really can execute. And when you do that exercise, you get to about a $12 billion CIP. Sounds so much better, doesn't it? But that's still a really, really big number, $12 billion. And so we said, let's look at this analysis on $12 billion, and let's look at it with the same operating gap it has before, which is what the next page is. So when you look at the sources on the right, $8.4 billion, same as before, and now you have a $12 billion CIP, the gap drops to $3.3 billion. So the gap to fund a $12 billion CIP, $1.2 billion a year, which is still bigger than $800 million they've been doing, but you look at what those projects are, if they do not do those, there is going to be a problem of a system even a decade later of being reliable and safe and working well and getting us to work on time. And in a meeting where we were talking to some board members, the general manager says we need to execute between a $1.1 and a $1.2 billion a year, and we got to get the capacity to do that to fix the system. So although we were taking an educated guess at it, we did get it confirmed by the general manager that this is the range of the CIP that they do need to execute, just last Thursday. The operation, this is the same page as before. The operation maintenance gaps remains at $2.1 billion. So go to page 15. And you can see if you have a $3.3 billion capital gap and a $2.1 billion operations gap, that's $5.4 billion. Divide by 10. That's an average of $542 million a year we need to find funding for if you believe they need to do a $12 billion CIP and you believe they need to continue to put the money into SafeTrack. And you go over on the jurisdiction side, it's half of what it was before. It's a $2 billion hit to the district, the 10-year total on the right-hand side. It's a $1.8 billion Maryland hit and a $1.5 billion Virginia hit, but still significant, which would require tough choices amongst the jurisdictions. So then we ask the next question, what if they borrowed? After the situation they had where they couldn't even produce annual financial statements and they couldn't get their grants done on time, my first reaction would be I would be concerned with Metro borrowing. So they need to get that fixed and taken care of first. But there is a way for them to borrow and to borrow affordably, and we'll show you that analysis. Whether it gets done or not is a different issue, but we'll show you how that could work. Think about if you're an investor and you want to buy bonds that Metro WMATA issues. Are you going to rely on the federal government for the next 30 years to give the payment that you need to pay yourself back? You probably will have questions about that. Are you going to rely on passenger revenues, which has been dropping dramatically, and you're not really sure where they're going? You'd probably be questionable about that. Are you going to rely on every single jurisdiction to give that 3% more or even more than that if you have to make up the gap? You're probably going to be questionable about that. So something like a dedicated funding source, whether it's a dedicated tax, a dedicated fee, motor vehicles, sales tax, income tax, property tax, whatever is out there that would grow with the economy, you could take that revenue coming in from all the jurisdictions, have it go directly to a bank called a lockbox, have it pay the debt service and have the excess go to Metro, and you would be able to borrow as cheap as any of the other jurisdictions. So we did that analysis, not saying it would happen, but if it did, what does it do to the cost? So we believe you could do that. You would get a pretty decent credit, and we assumed a 5% interest rate, 30-year borrowing in this analysis. So that $3.3 billion you got to fund on a pay-as-you-go basis, now it's a $250 million debt service payment, which is easier on the cash flow, costs more over time, but makes it more affordable over the period. So let's take a look at that on page 18. If you look at the line at the top, you'll see the operation and maintenance gap. There's no operation and maintenance gap in 17 because they balanced the budget. But if you look in 2022, and we have this for every single year, we're just showing you a snapshot. In 2022, because the 100 million grows, because the other factors are growing, inflation's in there, the gap on operations side is about $250 million. It grows to close to $300 million by the end of the 10-year forecast. The debt service, because you're only issuing to fund the gap and you're only issuing when you need it, it's relatively small. We show 7.75 in 2017 because we're using their raw data. They're not asking for that, but we're just putting the raw data in. We have the model built. We're seeing how it works. That goes to 68 million in 2022, so it's not that bad on the capital side in terms of being able to fund it. And then it hits the peak at 2026 when all the $3.3 billion in bonds have been issued and the full debt service is being paid. So now look at the right-hand side. The funding cost over a 10-year period is now $1 billion to the district, $1 billion to Maryland, and $819 million. If you look at the total line, the very bottom of the page, the total line, this is for all jurisdictions, the cost is $313 million in 2022. It reaches $500 million in 2026. So the peak number is $500 million. If you remember back on the pay-as-you-go page, the average was 542, but that $500 million was $500 million in 2022, and it jumped to $1.5 billion in 2026. So it grows really rapidly. If you borrow it, you can smooth it out and make it more affordable. So let's assume there's a dedicated tax, a $500 million dedicated tax. In 2022, you would have a $500 million dedicated tax coming in, dedicated source, and then you could take that difference and pay-as-you-go fund it, so you'll be borrowing less. So a $500 million dedicated funding source of some type, or $500 million from the federal government, non-matching grant, or whatever it is, you can borrow it, and then you'll have enough to get you through because it will grow over time, and it will allow you to pay as you go, so you won't be borrowing as much. So that's the number we believe is the right number you need on average annually to fund the needs of Metro. So a summary. We think the more appropriate CIP is not $18 billion, although there's data that suggests that. It's a $12 billion program, and the general manager has said he believes that's in that range, but they're doing a study to figure that out. Without borrowing, the gap averages 540, but it goes from 540 to 1.5 billion very rapidly. So that's going to be difficult for us all to manage. If you can find a way to borrow it with something like a dedicated funding source that's reliable that can be borrowed against, then it peaks at $500 million. And there's a way to do that and actually lower the cost over time. And if that dedicated source grows with the economy, it will grow with Metro and it will last way past a decade. And so we believe that it will be difficult for us, and it's certainly difficult for Maryland. Maryland's situation is they have to take Metro funding out of their transportation fund. So it's not like they can make decisions between public education and Metro. They have to make decisions about public transit, and Metro has to be one of those choices. So what are our conclusions here? Again, this is our analysis being discussed by the other members. Is the funding gap's approximately $500 million, but that does assume certain things. It assumes the federal government will extend their funding, $150 million, past 2020. It assumes that we'll all contribute 3% more a year, every jurisdiction, we're dedicated to doing that. And it assumes that but the $100 million funding gap is in the $500 million. So the $500 million covers the $100 million Safe Track, permanent Safe Track program is inside that number. We believe a regional dedicated funding source could be created to meet that, and it would result in a system that funds the gap they have and make it a well-funded system. So the other question that came up as we're looking at members, so if you do something like that, if we all agree to fund it out of our local contributions, you can fund it federal money, passenger fees going up, but they'd have to go up a great deal, local jurisdictions, or some dedicated funding source. But if you do nothing, that's the analysis here. We have done an analysis, and we'll have a white paper coming out that we'll be providing to the Council of Governments that shows that the cost of the trip delays of getting late to work, of Safe Track, of Metro not being on time, that's around $150 to $235 million a year in lost productivity and lost wages for people coming in late to work. We all know that if you do nothing, passenger safety risk will continue, traffic congestion will continue and likely worsen. And we also know that within a half a mile of Metro stations in the last 25 years, there's been $25 billion of property built within a half a mile of Metro, which is adding to the tax bases of Virginia, Maryland, and the district. The difficult part, and I have several PhDs that work for me in the Office of Revenue and Analysis, several economists, we sat around and said, well, what's the impact of Metro on growth? That's a nearly impossible question to answer, but you can look at it another way. COG has Council of Governments has a forecast for the region, for the Metro region. If you take that forecast of population, household income, and everything else, and you look at the taxes that generates, tax growth, it's about 2.5% a year to the region. So income tax, property tax, sales taxes growing at about 2.5% a year. So I'll keep the math very simple. The tax base of all the Metro members is about $38 billion. Just round it to $40 billion to keep the math simple. If that grows at 2.5% a year for 10 years, that's roughly 25%. So that's $10 billion more you're going to bring in 10 years from now. So we're going to go from 40 billion to 50 billion. If you take that 2.5% growth and you say, we believe that Metro not working will cause our growth to slow down just 0.25%, just a 0.25%, from 2.5 to 2.25, just that, you take 10, that's a 10% drop in growth rates. Take 10% of $10 billion, it's $1 billion. That's where the math comes from. So if Metro is going to slow our growth down from 2.5% a year to just 2.25% because it doesn't work and people aren't moving here and development's not going, that's $1 billion we're losing in taxes to Maryland, Virginia, and DC. So take that and take the productivity impacts and talk about finding $500 million a year to make Metro safe and work. The economics kind of make sense. You can have your own judgment about how much it would impact it. If you believe that, there is certainly a benefit cost of fixing the Metro system. So we did give this to the members. We're waiting on feedback. It says working draft on every page here. We're getting their feedback on it. Most of the feedback we've been getting is, can you assume we'll give more? Can you take $1 billion out of their capital program so we don't have to pay for it? Can you do this and that? It all keeps coming back to around the same numbers. And if you had to put this all on the passengers, you'd have to increase passenger fees 13.5% a year every year for 10 years should have the passengers pay for it. So then you can probably forecast a continued decline. So there's no easy solution here, but this is to give us all a rough order of magnitude analysis so we know as we look at our other capital programs where this fits in, and it helps us look at, as this puts a strain on us and other jurisdictions, you have to start looking at those P3s. You have to start looking at your capital priorities. So that's a summary of where that is. Councilmember Evans, hopefully that's what you were.
Thank you very much. And I just want to give Jeff a round of applause on that because he has done an enormous job for the region because Metro has not done any of this, nor has anybody else. And so as a byproduct of his work for the district, Virginia, Maryland, federal government, now everybody understands the daunting numbers that we're facing. And so I come back to you. The whole purpose of today was so you know, you are educated. So when next January, February, March comes for the district budget, and we're looking at Metro asking for a huge increase over what was given last year, you understand where it came from and the decisions that have to be made. We either do it or we don't do it, or we do part of it. I can say Maryland, Virginia, even the feds, everyone's reaction, like Jeff said, is disbelief, anger. Can we just not do it somehow? Is there a way out of this? And the answer is yes, we don't do any of it. But you get the system that you got. And my advice is Metro needs to be fixed. Because if Metro doesn't work, nothing works. And we have invested $13 billion in building this system, and we have allowed it to go to wreck and ruin. And it's on us, it's on our generation to either fix it or kick the can down the road. But I got to tell you, we are at the end of the road. You kick the can, it's just going to hit the wall and come back at you. There's no place else to kick the can, really. So thank you for your attention, and Jeff and I are available. If anybody has any quick questions, I know we want to get the meeting over with. But
Thank you, Jack, and thank you, Mr. DeWitt. I want to just join in Jack in saying that the remarkable job that Jeff has done early last year right after I became mayor, we really had a serious conversation about Metro finances and the things that we needed to do. We made some decisions about both the mayor and the council about leadership on the board and what we wanted our board members to be able to be armed with, and Jeff stepped up to the plate to really get that tough analysis done. There are a lot of key takeaways that I got from the presentation last week, and it seems like the most palatable alternative for the district is to have a tax, dedicated tax. That's for the whole region, but certainly for us, that would allow us to do a reason, to allow Metro to have reasonable borrowing at reasonable rates to get this done. So we know what it would seem is that we should all be prepared that sometime in the foreseeable future, we're going to have to present a new tax to the residents of the District of Columbia to support Metro, and we're going to have to bring all of the jurisdictions along with us. I think it's also too important to say, Jack said we don't have to do this. Well, that's just not true. We do have to do this. Without doing this, we don't have the system that we have. We have a much worse system. And it is true that that board, you talked about $2 billion needed for Bethesda Metro and the tunnel around that. The board knew that 15 years ago and decided not to do it. And so now 15 years later, we have the big issue that we have. For the district, we talk about traffic and growing. Imagine another 130,000 people here. How are they going to get around? Because that's how many more people that we have coming. So an investment in Metro is not a luxury for us. It is a necessity for us to be able to maintain the quality of life that we have now and to be able to grow. So Jack, we appreciate your leadership on this issue, keeping the federal government engaged and making sure that we bring the jurisdictions along. Part of what I think Jeff has done is also very important because everybody is frustrated. Nobody wants to pay more money if they're not spending the money and that they're not spending the money well. And so I think challenging them on what they have put out, limiting it to what they can actually spend, and on the projects that are for safety and reliability is an important sell to the federal government as well. So I want to thank you for that. I also wanted to, the earlier point that you made, Jack, around late hours. I think it's important for DC members, and I think all of our board members are on the same page, but also for leadership in the district. A lot of people want to paint late hours as some frivolity for people to go out to bars and drink and go to restaurants. That's important. We want to support our economy. But the truth is, a lot of the people that are riding late nights are working in buildings like this all across the downtown, and they're going home at 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning. And if they don't have reliable late night service, they will not be able to get to their jobs. Now, to our colleagues in the counties, many of those people live in DC, but many of those people live out in the counties too. So if they're not willing to support their low-income workers coming into the district to their jobs so that they can support their families, we have a big issue. But what I just want just everybody to focus on is this is not a frivolity. It's not about people just going out to have a good time. It is about people also being able to connect to jobs. We had the opportunity before Safe Track was instituted, DDOT submitted a long memo about all of the things that we wanted Metro to focus on when it came to Safe Track. We want Safe Track to work. We want them to have the hours that we need. But we also have looked at other, as Jack pointed out, the chart that you have, we've looked at other properties and the amount of maintenance hours that they have on similar systems, two-track systems of a similar age. And we think that Metro has a couple of hours to work with there, that maybe they need those hours, but we want to challenge them to make sure they are, they could get the same amount of work done in the hours that similarly situated systems get the work done. Why can't we get the work done in those same amount of hours? We also called to their attention that that this notion that we should wholesale, we never agreed to a wholesale change to late night hours. You didn't agree to that, did you, Jack? And so we don't want it to be sold. I think the board supported Safe Track because it was a temporary investment of concentrated resources, but the district has never agreed to a wholesale change in our hours, and we outlined that on May 25th. And it is also not a frivolity when you're the nation's capital and you host the nation's events to call out that there should, it's hard to have a one-size-fits-all policy when it comes to special events. And I think it would make sense for the board to consider how do you have a very serious way to evaluate if a special event merits a deviation from this plan. And so I would very much support you in that, Jack. Mr. Chairman.
I think a couple of members had
Yep.
questions, and then we need to keep moving along.
Yep.
Do you want to recognize folks, or you want me to?
Your
Mr.
pleasure.
McDuffie, and then...
Just a quick question, and thank you for the presentation, Jeff, and the comments, Madam Mayor. And Mr. Evans, question to you, Ms. Evans, in terms of the board's role, I know everybody's been focused right now on Safe Track, and everybody is really paying attention because of some of the service disruptions and the high-profile incidents. And as we think about how to fund the gap going forward, the mayor mentioned the dedicated tax. I think it's something that the district is probably, dare I say, a little bit more amenable to than some of the other jurisdictions. We understand how inextricably linked our metro system is to our economy. And I think if you talk about Montgomery County, Fairfax County, some of the regional partners at council governments, I think they understand it. But some of these decisions other jurisdictions are made at the state level, and they're, state assemblies and members who don't have the same type of understanding of how important metro is. So in terms of how the board is evaluating the operations in metro and trying to inspire confidence to know that things are going, the progress is continuing, are there any benchmarks that you all are planning to put in place to be able to gauge how successful the metro is operating going forward so we can try to inspire confidence in other jurisdictions?
Yeah, it's a great question, Kenyon. And the answer is yes. What Paul has done, Wiedefeld and Safe Track in making repairs, and we can get you a list of that, is the list of things that are done. For instance, replacing rail ties. At the rate Metro was doing it, it would have taken us 9 years to replace their ties. We have it down to 6 months for all the ties. So there's a whole list of cables, ties. I can't even articulate, the specifics of what is there, that will show you that Metro is actually making progress in making the repairs that should have been done over the last 15 years, and we're doing it quickly. And so the idea, as you mentioned, because this is the feedback I get, show me that you're doing it right and I'll give you the money, and that's a good way of not giving you the money. That's a good answer from political people. So we are trying to address that and say, here, we have a great general manager, he's doing a great job, these are the results, this is how fast we're doing, we're spending the money wisely. Now, you can't use that as an excuse not to give us the money. And keep in mind, on the sales tax, the District of Columbia is already there. We passed a 0.5% increase in the sales tax for Metro, contingent upon the other jurisdictions doing it. So we're already well down the line. Maryland and Virginia have said to Jeff's presentation, absolutely not. We're not raising any taxes. And so we have a huge uphill battle. Now, your point is well taken. Montgomery County and Prince George's County might be willing to do it, but you got to get the state to allow them to do it. And frankly, my argument would be, let them do it. Let Montgomery and Prince George's County raise the sales tax of 1% and not the rest of the state. Same problem in Virginia, where you have to get Richmond to allow the jurisdictions to do this. And frankly, at this point, they're not convinced that they want to do it. And so that's the uphill battle we have. The district is always on board. It's the other jurisdictions who do not see Metro as that important that we have a huge task. And I know you and the chairman are active at COG and doing all you can to help us over there.
Councilmember Nadeau.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for this presentation, Jack, and Mr. CFO, for all the work that you put into this analysis. I think that a dedicated funding stream for Metro is long overdue, and so if that means that we have to rally support for a tax, then count me in. I think we really need to step up and make sure we don't keep getting in this same situation. I wanted to ask Jack about the early closing scenarios. I heard from a business owner in Ward 1 a few weeks ago. She had come back to the shop late at night and found that one of her workers had actually chosen to sleep in the shop, closed down, because there was no way to get home otherwise, and then would, unlock, lock back up, and leave when the Metro rail started running again to get home, which is obviously a situation that concerns me a lot. What is the board looking at in terms of potential Metro bus routes that could supplement the rail during early closing scenarios?
Another good question. One of the additions I made to the public hearing when we have the hearing on these is to run a bus route along every Metro corridor.
Great.
So if we stop running the Metro, that there will be a bus that goes from stop to stop to stop along every Metro route. Right? What would it take? Do we have the capacity, and how much it costs? And so Metro is putting that together as well. So the idea of being able to use bus instead of rail is an option, and maybe late at night they could move pretty quickly because there's not a lot of traffic on the road. So it is an option that we're taking a look at, but nothing will replace the rail system. And again, in the city, I think it's just so critical to have the rail system. And Mayor's comments are well taken in the sense, does Metro really need an extra 8 hours? General Manager says absolutely, yet other systems get by with less hours. So why is that? Why can't we be more efficient? Or do we have so much work we have to make up that we actually can't get there? And so this is, it's going to be a heated discussion and public hearings on it, and hopefully we will be successful in keeping it over late at night. But keep in mind, again, I've run into this enormous opposition, particularly from Maryland, even on balancing the budget. The Maryland representatives say, why can't we continue to take from the capital fund? Why can't we raise fares except in the outer jurisdictions? Believe it or not, the Maryland rep said we should not raise the 590 any higher, but we should raise fares. Well, all that says is raise the fares in the District of Columbia. I mean, outrageous proposal. Why don't we just sell buildings? Oh, well, that's a great idea. What do we do next year? Sell more buildings? And these are the idiotic proposals, and I use that word freely, that people are making in order to try and avoid going back to the jurisdiction and asking for more money.
Thank you.
Councilmember Silverman?
Well, thank you, Jack, and thank you, Mr. CFO. So I assume the Nationals are going to go to the World Series,
Absolutely.
Jack? And those games, so that we might have...
And the Caps to the Stanley Cup.
That too.
Yes.
But I'm concerned about just the playoff series in front of us. Some of those games are going to be nationally televised on weekdays. Is Metro going to stay open late? What is the status of that? Have there been discussions with the learners? Second question is my nerddom. Jeff, you talked about this $500 million gap. What does that look like in terms of a percentage dedicated tax? Is the 0.5% sales tax going to cover that? What does it look like? And then, part of Jack, which is, Kenyon sort of covered this, but where are we with the dedicated tax? Is this a non-starter in Maryland and Virginia? Where are you in your one pursuit of the dedicated tax?
To answer your question, we, in working with COG on what alternatives are for dedicated taxes, just to give you a flavor, it's a 1% regional sales tax. Just in the region, the compact area collects $500 million. The math just comes out, 1% does that. The other things that we've looked at, it's like 6 to 7% cents on a property tax, 32 cents on property near metro stations. Income tax is like 0.3% on income tax in the region, but the one that is common to what other jurisdictions do on a dedicated funding source, which I believe it's 17 out of 25 metro systems like ours have a dedicated sales tax, it's 1%.
So we would need to change our law to get to 1%.
Correct. We'd have to get to 1%. Everybody in the region would also have to do 1%. Where are we on that? The governor of Maryland is absolutely against it. As I said, the only way I see it working is that the state gives the two counties the opportunity to do that, and there seems to be support in the counties. Virginia, they're absolutely against it. Everybody's against it. And so just getting them to even entertain the idea, they won't even state dedicated funding source. They use some other term of art to describe it. So it's a tough road. The problem that I always have with Jeff's presentation, it's a great presentation, is you have to divide it into two. Number one is the big problem. Number two is the solution. The solution isn't here. The problem is here. So come January, we are going to have to come up with $275 million, and it's not going to be from a dedicated funding source. That's not going to happen. If that happens, it's years away before that happens.
And where are we
So-
at with nationals?
Well, in the Nationals, again, the board was not receptive to supporting the late night closings, or openings, however, for the Nationals. We didn't make a decision. I want to revisit it with the board again. There seemed to be absolutely no support for the divisional playoffs, which start October 7th. Little support for the National League Championship, and maybe a little bit more for the World Series, but again, the board is, as you saw from my comments in the paper yesterday, it's a 16-member, very difficult board, where the general answer that has been in the past, and the mayor can confirm this when she was there, the answer is no. Everything is no, no. And so trying to convince them that this is important for us is critical. The World Series is not the Billy Joel concert. It's not the Marine Corps Marathon. This is a national event that really highlights our city. And as I used the example earlier, it's going to look foolish if 15,000 people have to get up and leave the game. I mean, so we have to get the board to support the idea of keeping open, because Paul Wiedefeld has been very clear. I'm not making any exceptions. So that's
even
where
if
we are.
even if the learners paid for the service?
Oh, yeah, we haven't even got to that part yet. You know,
Okay.
we're trying to keep the thing open. Once it gets open, then the question is who's going to pay for it. And the city is not, Metro clearly is not, so it goes to the team, and the team can either pay for it or find a sponsor to pay for it. And I think we can actually take care of that issue. So I'm less concerned about paying for it than I am to try and get this thing to stay open. So I say to the mayor, to the chairman, all of you, I don't know what I can even ask you to do other than we need to convince the Metro board to keep this place open. And if you want to go for the divisional series, I'm with you on that as well. It's a 5-game series. It starts October 7th. It's going to be exciting, and the likelihood is the games are going to go past 11:20. And that it's just an embarrassment that as the nation's capital, as one of the major cities in the world, our subway system closes. It's crazy.
We need to move on. Madam Mayor, when the agenda circulated yesterday, there was an item on it that's not on it today that was our request, and that was a discussion regarding where we are with police community relations.
I'd like to, we won't have the Office of Police Complaints, but we can have that for a future meeting. We didn't invite them, but I'm happy to provide a public safety update.
Well, the specific, it wasn't so much the Office of Police Complaints as it was, as you know, there are concerns across the country with regard to police community relations and use of force. And so I think that was the essence of the request, that not specifically the Office of Police Complaints, but how we are doing as a city with regard to ensuring that there isn't improper use of force and that we are improving as opposed to having worse police community relations.
Well, I think that
You're not
the
ready to discuss
council.
that today?
Well, I think we are improving based on the audit that you just concluded, or the study the auditor just concluded, comparing our police community relations to when she was the chair of the Judiciary Committee some years ago. So that is a complete assessment of where we are, and your auditor has it. What we are prepared to talk about today are the most recent incident that a couple of you have asked me about.
Okay.
Okay. And I think we should move now on to the fall legislative agenda.
Well, so you're not going to discuss that?
I am going to discuss it, but right now I'm going to move along with the agenda where it says fall legislative update, and then I can have the public safety update.
Well, my concern is this. First of all, this was a request from the council. We requested 2 items for the agenda, WMATA and this public safety update. and somehow the public safety update got dropped from the agenda. It's now
It-
10 of
it-
11. We started at 9:35.
Mr. Chairman, I have already said that I'm going to give you the public safety update. If you would like to move it to now, I can do that.
Yes.
That's not a problem. You could have just asked me for that. We can move it to ahead of the fall legislative agenda. Now, is there anything else you want to change?
No, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Donahue?
Good morning. So I'm going to give an update about body-worn cameras in the most recent incident, but I want to actually first start by thanking you, the council, for supporting our efforts to increase the number of MPD officers. Since 2010, MPD has been warning about the officer retirement bubble, when a lot of officers were hired between 1989 and 1991, who then become eligible to retire around now in the past few years. So you recently passed two pieces of emergency legislation. The first is the Law Enforcement Career Opportunity Amendment Act of 2016, which increases the maximum age of participants in the Police Academy Cadet Program from 21 to 25 years old. This will allow us to have more DC born and raised police officers, as well as the Senior Law Enforcement Amendment Act of 2016, which will assist MPD in retaining experienced, highly qualified sergeants and detectives who would otherwise retire and be rehired by another jurisdiction or the private sector. These are helpful. They will help us address the retirement bubble and help us keep the appropriate number of uniformed officers on the force. We'll also ask in the fall for you to consider legislation that will clarify tampering with a GPS monitoring device so it can be prosecuted no matter which agency has ordered that GPS to be worn on an individual. This will allow the bill to apply to monitoring devices ordered by any court, see SOSA, pretrial services, the U.S. Parole Commission, and DYRS. Enforcing our GPS monitoring program will make DC safer and stronger by ensuring we hold accountable those who do not meet the requirements of their release. Now I want to talk about body-worn cameras and the recent case of Terrence Sterling. Earlier this month, a significant concern around our body-worn camera program was brought to our attention. Following a fatal officer-involved shooting, we learned that the camera was not activated as it is supposed to be in the lead-up to that shooting. In this incident, his body-worn camera did not begin recording until after his weapon was discharged. This is not the intent of MPD policies or our body-worn camera program. And as a result, we have immediately implemented procedures to ensure the body-worn cameras are activated properly and as intended with the MPD body-worn camera protocol. In coordination with the Office of Unified Communication, dispatchers have begun reminding officers to turn on their body-worn cameras when they are dispatched to calls for service. Our body-worn camera program is being updated to require body-worn camera-equipped officers to then acknowledge they have received the radio reminder and have activated their body-worn camera program when responding to a call for service or having a citizen interaction. The reminder will allow for there to be easier and more fluid adoption of this new technology. And the training procedures at the Tactical Village will be modified to include body-worn camera activation in the live scenario trainings that they conduct there. This will be completed by the end of October. We are also monitoring our body-worn camera program closely to ensure that officers have the training and appropriate support necessary to successfully implement the program. Today, I'll provide an update on the investigation into the MPD officer-involved shooting that resulted in the death of Mr. Terrence Sterling on September 11, 2016. Any loss of life is a terrible tragedy, once again we extend our condolences to the family and friends of Mr. Sterling. Yesterday, the Chief of Police, Peter Newsham, called Mr. Sterling's family and offered them the opportunity to view in private the body-worn camera footage before it is publicly released. They will view it today, and after that, we will release the footage of the body-worn camera that was recorded at the incident, as well as the name of the officer that discharged the service weapon. Only one officer was equipped with the body-worn camera at the scene, and the camera did not activate until after the shooting as required by protocol. As such, the video does not depict the shooting, only the events immediately afterwards. You will also recall the mayor has previously made public video from 2 police-involved shootings. She did so in those instances and will do so in this instance as well, because the public interest in releasing those videos, as well as this one, outweigh on balance the interest in not disclosing it. That is, we have a significant public interest in publishing body-worn cameras. When doing so, responds to the requests of the public, and when doing so will not jeopardize the investigation into whether or not officers involved acted properly or not. In this case, the U.S. Attorney's Office, with whom the mayor has consulted, has had 2 weeks to investigate and interview witnesses. It is also in the public's best interest to release the name of the officer involved. In this case, transparency can help to remind people that what they want, we do, which is provide transparency and trust. Moreover, it is fair to say that we, in addition to many other jurisdictions, are in the process of learning why, when, and how to release this type of information. We are not alone in this process, but we hope to lead the discussion. It is important to note that the video we will release today does not answer all the questions that people have. We will get answers to those questions, but right now the investigation is still in its preliminary stage and is being conducted by the U.S. Attorney's Office. MPD is still investigating the circumstances that led to the initial interaction between officers and Mr. Sterling. We continue to seek out individuals who may have information about this incident. We ask that they contact MPD at 202-727-9099 to speak with detectives. Witnesses can also send anonymous tips to MPD by texting them at 50411. Let me say the overwhelming majority of officers put their training into practice every day regarding body-worn cameras. In the past 30 days alone, MPD has had their body-worn cameras activated 55,000 times. This has resulted in 11,000 hours of footage. In the same period of 30 days, MPD has found 10 known instances, 10, where an officer did not activate their body-worn camera as required. Our job then is to do what we can to make sure there will be support for our police officers so they have the tools and training to do their job the right way, and we demonstrate by our actions that when that doesn't happen, the residents of the district will be able to trust that their elected leaders have operated accountably and openly.
Thank you. Are there questions from any members? With regard to the use of force investigation that you referred to that the auditor did, there were some recommendations. Can you speak to progress with regard to implementing those recommendations?
We'll be happy to come back to you and discuss that.
All right. If there are no questions from members, then we'll move on to the
There are no
next.
questions?
I have a comment.
Please.
Believable.
As we look at race relations and community relations with the police, I appreciate the mayor and Deputy City Administrator Donahue, your appreciation for having police officers who are born and raised in D.C. or come from the community. And so I'm really appreciative for the work that you're doing at Anacostia High School with the cadet program and making sure that, especially for me and Ward 8, making sure that Ward 8 residents are having an opportunity to become the part of the community that helps to serve and protect. And so I'm really grateful, and I've had a chance to meet some of the students that are in the academy, and really grateful and thankful for that. So.
Thank you, Ms. May.
I believe Councilmember Allen has a question.
Thank you, Ms. Mayor and Mr. Deputy Mayor, for the rundown there. I did want to ask, because the killing took place on the border of Ward 6 and Ward 5, so I've been in touch with the ANC Commissioner and with neighbors, obviously, over the last 2 weeks, and appreciate it was on the phone with Chief Newsham yesterday, just making sure that I understood where different pieces, which you pretty much went over there. I think it'd be helpful, and if you could correct me if I'm wrong, that we're currently in a phase where we have two investigations taking place, essentially. That we have for the shooting officer, that is being led at this point by the independent U.S. Attorney's Office. And I know it's been 2 weeks, and I don't know if there's anything we're able to do to help USAO get to a decision. And then you have the MPD investigation of the driver, which I think you referenced, which is reviewing policies, procedures, rules that were followed or not followed in an action there. I do think it's important to make sure there's a distinction between the actions and then the internal actions. Those are two different pieces. Could you just make sure either, is that a correct understanding or anything you wanted to add about that?
That is a correct understanding. And we've made a request early on to the U.S. Attorney's Office that we wanted to be able to pursue an investigation around a personnel action that might be related to actions taken leading up to the incident but are outside of a criminal investigation. And I've consulted with them for distinguishing which actions we are free to pursue separately and which they consider to be part of the criminal investigation.
Has the U.S. Attorney's Office been helpful in terms
They've been
of
very helpful in that, in allowing for us to have a concurrent investigation and in helping, letting us know where they define the criminal investigation starts and where a personnel investigation can proceed.
But at least in terms of what the USAO is responding to you, any criminal investigation is focused on shooting officer, not the driving officer.
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you for the update, Mr. Deputy Mayor. As you know, I sent a letter to you and Chief Newsham specifically about Mr. Sterling's shooting and requested that some additional information be released. And so I do appreciate that you all intend to release the body-worn camera footage as well as the name of the officer. Quick question. Have there been any opportunity with MPD or perhaps yourself to engage specifically some of the individuals who have been protesting this specific shooting and making demands about releasing footage and information? Have you all had an opportunity to perhaps engage them to try to maybe head off some of the concerns and emotions that are playing right now?
Sure. Let me just jump in because certainly we're concerned about providing information. And that is the whole reason we came to you and asked for the body-worn camera footage. But we also, as was discussed, as we were coming up with all the rules, we recognize that we are focused on transparency, but we're also focused on making sure that all of our partners in justice have what they need and have the ability to investigate. And so in reviewing this body-worn camera footage, first, I think you noticed that we were all very disappointed that the camera wasn't engaged in the way that it should have been engaged. And if it had been, maybe we would have more information about what happened that night. And so we immediately put in a change in protocols that we think will make the cameras used the way they want. But we have followed very thoroughly in consultation with our partners how we could responsibly release this footage. And that's what brings us to this decision.
But specifically, the question is whether or not you all have had an opportunity to engage some of the individuals who've been organizing the peaceful protests on this specific shooting. Have you all had an opportunity to engage them?
The chief of police and the commander on the scene, if you're referring to yesterday, where there were people in the street,
Yesterday and
yes,
last week as well.
yes, they were engaged.
Mr. Grasso?
I just want to say quickly thank you for moving to a new space on this and for preparing a statement on this case. It's incredibly important, and I appreciate your willingness to try to get in front of the requests by the public on this particular case. I want to just take this moment to remind folks that the body-worn cameras are not a panacea to end crime, and that in the end, you know, it's good to have the data and it's good to have the evidence. But what my fear is that somebody thought it was okay, period, to shoot somebody and solve a conflict in that way. So I just hope that we continue to move this discussion forward towards a space that is about alternatives to violence and alternatives to use of violence in our city. And that, I think, goes to the question of community policing and engaging in relationships. And I think Councilmember Allen noted that there'll be an investigation into the actions of the driver and what was the thinking in that particular situation that somebody would think it's okay to cut him off or whatever happened, you know, drive in a way that, you know, prevented that person from getting out of that situation and then escalated the danger and the conflict. And so I know that turning on the cameras is the basic first step here, and so I appreciate the move to formalize that. I can't imagine anyone would have thought that they shouldn't have turned it on, but then again, that was some of the fear we had, and I hope the public realizes that the government, in partnership, the mayor and the council, I hope together can move to a place where we're using this evidence to change policies and to change the way that we engage with the community and the way that the police engages with the community to move towards a more nonviolent approach to conflict resolution. Thank you.
And
I just want to, and thank you for those comments, Council Member. But I do want to be clear. We haven't changed any way of thinking about this. This case, the investigation to this case has taken this 2 weeks and 1 day to mature to the point where we could make a responsible decision. But it doesn't reflect a change in thinking on our part.
Councilmember Alexander.
I just had a quick question. Were there any other cameras in the area, police cameras or personal cameras, someone's residence or business? Has that been asked of anyone in the area?
The police detectives in the U.S. Attorney's Office have interviewed a number of people that were present. So that evidence goes directly to the U.S. Attorney's Office. I think at least one, if not two, local TV stations have put on their website private footage from camera phones. But the body cameras is the ownership of the government. Private footage will often go directly to the criminal investigation.
And Councilmember, all I am aware of is after the fact video that is reflective of the video that the body-worn camera video. I'm not aware of any video that shows the incident.
And so to be clear, what's the procedure now that officers use with the camera? Do they keep it on all the time?
It is not kept on all the time. What if they have a call for service, the dispatchers at OUC will remind them to turn their camera on, and we request that officers then voice over the radio back that to confirm they've activated their camera. This allows for there to be a recording as well that the activation request was made and the camera was confirmed to be turned on. The reason they're not on all the time is and this is not unique to DC, but nationally it's a question of data storage. And the technology, as technology improves, I don't doubt that there'll come a time when the activation will be overtaken by technology. But right now, there are data storage constraints that aren't unique to DC, that are being asked of every jurisdiction about how to allow for the activation to be an easier process or for more footage to be recorded prior to activation.
And just because I asked that, because a part of the community police relations, a lot of the young men I've talked to in my community have said things that are a little off color sometimes about interactions with police, whether, it's not a call for service, but just interaction in the community. So I'm wondering, if that could be enhanced. So, I don't take it for granted, or I don't take their word that this may be true, but I think for relations, that's kind of a way to see if some of the concerns that people have in the communities in general.
Officers who don't activate it are subject to discipline, and it's important for members of the community to raise complaints with our independent Office of Police Complaints, who can see if there's camera activation. The question you raise of what about is sort of something that's not officially dispatched. A lot of the attention and scrutiny that MPD has of the program is on instances of self-initiated engagement from the officer or self-dispatch. So there's not going to be a recording of that. There's not going to be OUC dispatching it and trying to capture all of that. One of the things that we've asked our Chief Technology Officer to look at is to work with the manufacturer to see if there's a way of expanding the amount of time when a camera can simply be on, even without activation, as data storage technology improves. And that's something other cities have also started to go back to the manufacturer and ask about.
Madam Mayor, I don't think there are any other questions from council members. You wanted to go on to the other next item?
Sure, and let me just say on the matter of police complaints, if that is actually the council's request, we can have them come to a future meeting. And they have probably seen more body-worn camera footage than most of us, because they have direct access to it, as does the Office of the Attorney General. And let me acknowledge Natalie Ludaway and the Attorney General for their consultation on this matter as well. So thank you for that. Let's move on to the DEMPED, to the Fall Ledge items, and we can move quickly through these. You have these slides, and I do believe that the OPLA has talked to many of you about items on this agenda. Are you going to go, Maia?
Sure. So, good morning, everyone. Yes, still morning. In an effort to kind of move quickly through this, you guys know a lot of what we've already introduced, and we've already had some briefing one-on-ones with each of you. DEMPED has a very active fall legislative agenda. They have 11 projects that they'll be have either already sent down or will be down at council. We estimate 799 units of affordable housing, over 4,400 construction and permanent jobs, and $865 million in projected tax revenue. I want to highlight that this is gives a overview in terms of where all the projects are. Again, we continue to kind of move forward. There are projects in Ward 2, Ward 5, Ward 6, and Ward 4 as well, Ward 7. I'm going to
Not to interrupt, but I think you referred to a handout that I don't believe any of us have.
I'm sorry, you don't have that handout. I'll be happy to make it available to you afterwards. Sure. We're going to move quickly here through some of the projects. So we have R.L. Christian at 1300 H Street. There's the Strand Theater as well. I think we're excited about some movement there. Deputy Mayor Kenner, I'm looking to him for some confirmation. We'll be sending down the Stevens School disposition extension. And there are a couple of projects here that are a part of this that have, we're seeing fresh movement and fresh efforts and energy around it. Bruce Monroe, Fort Totten Triangle, a project that the community there has been waiting for a long time. Capitol Vista, Fifth and I, Hill East, Skyland. We're excited about that. I don't know, Deputy Mayor, if you want to speak a little bit to that.
Sure. Yes, we're very excited that we're going to be submitting TIF legislation, which we've actually already done, introducing TIF legislation, which will enable that project to go to a real groundbreaking. It will have funding associated with it. I know there's been a few groundbreakings in the past around Skyland, but we will be doing a real groundbreaking for the Skyland project. And we will continue to see movement. There's the project, the first phase of that project, which the TIF will enable, will be a few hundred units of residential as well as about 80,000 square feet of retail that will happen at the Skyline Shopping Center. Do you want me to? We've got Rhode Island Avenue, which is also being known as Bryant Street TIF, that we'll be introducing. We've got a part of the West End project, which is just a technical amendment that we need to make. And that's it. Thank you very much.
In addition to that, we have some additional activity related to the Department of Human Services, so that we are, thank you to Council for taking those first steps towards, we passed several pieces of legislation, but also for taking those first steps towards making the goal of closing DC General a reality. We have some additional things that we need to do in order to help better serve our residents. And I'm going to let Director Zeilinger, gave her a promotion. Look at that. Rushed her through school.
Call me Laura. So I'll just give a really quick summary overview and happy to have longer conversation. The work that we're doing on homeless services, in the work that we've been in partnership with the council in closing and replacing DC General is really important. And I've said to the council several times that it is not just, if that was all we were doing, then we would not end up in a better place. That it is also about systems change. And so these amendments are really about helping us create an emergency system and continuing to reform the legislation so that we can have a system that works. One provision strengthens what is already existing in law, which is a prioritization for services for people who are residents of the District of Columbia. As a right to shelter jurisdiction, that is important. The emergency system is the most costly part of our homeless system, and we need to create some improvements in the law that help us realize the purpose that is there, that allows us to better determine residency during the eligibility process for families. The second provision is about authorizing the district to redetermine eligibility for services. We do that with all of our other public benefit programs, either through a regular recertification or when somebody no longer qualifies because their income changes, because other things happen. It's part of the federal requirements in TANF, SNAP, and other benefits that we administer, but in homeless services it's absent from the law, and there are many instances where circumstances change that would change eligibility, but we don't explicitly have the authority to make that redetermination and help people access other resources when they have them. Third is about clarifying that when someone has access to safe housing, that they do not meet the definition of homelessness for the purpose of receiving emergency shelter. There are protections in the language that look at domestic violence, human trafficking, sexual assault, and other areas where we need to be very intentional about protecting people who may be in those situations. But we also see a lot of people come to the homeless system looking for help with housing, affordable housing, but it is not an emergency shelter need. And we need to be able to continue to reserve the emergency shelter system for those who are having a true housing emergency, and so this strengthens our ability to do that.
I'm going to rush you on a little bit so we can get to the other items and ask you to make sure you are touching base with the council members about any question that we have. It's very important part of what we need to do to reform the system. You helped last year certainly with some critical changes in supporting short-term family housing, but we need all of these pieces fit together to truly reform the system. So we look forward to your help. We've talked a little bit already, Kevin did, about the public safety items, the big one being the G. Yes.
Is this going to be one legislative package that's coming down to make these changes? Is that
Yes.
the plan? It's not a bunch of little ones?
It's one that's been introduced.
It has been, okay.
Okay. Maya, you want to go on to
Sure.
DDOT?
In addition, the timely that we talk about the Washington Metro Rail Safety Commission Compact. There will be council scheduled a hearing for that ties in very closely with the presentation that Councilmember Evans gave us. In addition, we're doing some things to make sure that we're strengthening our CBEs and helping them to build capacity. This particular piece of legislation makes it possible for CBEs to enter into joint ventures and also to be able to meet insurance requirements and liability requirements. And so we're excited about that. The folks over at DSLBD have been extremely busy in terms of making sure that we're expanding opportunities and strengthen our small businesses. Additionally, we have some legislation that's coming down from DCRA. As you know, the mayor spent some time there, and we looked at ways that we could reform and make the process and doing business in the district easier. One of the things is we are putting forward that will allow for self-certifications for small landlords. That'll be in as a rulemaking, and then also allows landlords to self-certify for a business license. Additionally, we're doing some things regarding consumer protection. We're putting forward an omnibus bill that talks about what I refer to as the lemonade stand exemption. So currently, DC law requires for businesses like a lemonade stand, a car wash pop-up for a local football team or so activities like that to receive a small business license, we're going to, if you only operate a couple of times a year and you don't meet a certain amount, we're going to provide an exemption there. Also, we've heard from the community that they need landlords to be able to provide additional information and ways to be able to contact them. We're going to mandate that landlords provide a 24-hour number in order to reach them to report repairs that are needed. Additionally, let's move on there. And then we also have the Department of For-Hire Vehicles, which is continuing to streamline and to clarify their regulations, and so that's exciting. That's going to be moving as well. I just want to highlight we have a few items that were introduced as a part of the fall legislative agenda. We know we've been working closely. Last year's fall legislative agenda, we were working closely with council, so I just flag a couple of those. The citizens with intellectual disabilities and civil rights, and I think we've had conversations with almost all of the council members on these, and so I know we have plans in terms of markup and moving forward. And then we'll have some nominees coming down as well that we ask for you to help us to move quickly. That's all, Madam Mayor.
Would you provide us with a copy of that PowerPoint?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So there are no questions on that, and I asked Maia to touch base with everybody, and we appreciate your attention. Well, I know you have a very busy few months. We've highlighted a few things that are really important to some things we got to get done, and I would appreciate your help with that. If you don't mind, it's not on the agenda, but I wanted to acknowledge the Attorney General's office. Any objection? Okay, Ms. Ludaway.
Good morning. I'll just take a minute to report on behalf of the Attorney General on the 2 gun cases that are pending in the D.C. Circuit, specifically Wren and Grace. In those 2 cases, the district's gun law has been challenged relating to the requirements that in order to possess a firearm outside of the home, that you be able to show good cause. There was argument heard on those 2 cases last week. As everyone knows, those are tough cases. We are optimistic, and as soon as a decision is reached, we will let you know. During the interim period prior to the court ruling, the injunction is still in place, so the law still is in effect, and we'll keep you updated on it. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that's all we have. We have anything else? Okay. Have anything else?
I don't. It's 11:25. We have an 11 o'clock hearing on statehood constitution.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.